Welcome to A Styled Life, the podcast for purpose-led female founders and senior leaders ready to use style as a powerful tool for confidence, impact and influence. I'm your host, Alex Standley, multi-award-winning personal stylist, speaker and sustainable fashion consultant with 2 decades of experience in the fast-paced world of fashion. Join me as we redefine success from the inside out. This podcast isn't just about clothes. It's about personal power, purposeful style, and creating a life that aligns with your values. So whether you're running a business, leading a movement, or stepping into your next chapter, you're in the right place. Each week, we'll dive into the world of personal style, sustainability, female empowerment, and living with intention through real stories, expert insights, and plenty of inspiration. The type of women that I work with, they know that style is important, but they lead very busy lives and they also value how they show up. They don't need convincing that style is that first 7-second impression that you make, and they might not have named the specific gap and that cost between how they're currently showing up on autopilot and how they could be showing up if they were really dressing for who they had become. And that is what I wanted to talk about today, because when I did my Stage Ready Style event recently, I saw the same pattern coming up again and again. And that was where women were almost on autopilot, making those choices in their wardrobe of a morning. And it's something that they had just become accustomed to. And quite often it was related to colour. So it was defaulting to the safe option, defaulting to black, because they'd evolved so much that they just didn't know what this version of them looked like, how she dressed. But also they had fallen into that trap of what's appropriate, what's professional, what a fill in the gap profession should wear. And it was really holding each of them back in different ways, and it had different costs for each of them. But underlying all of it was the same problem, that they were performing a version of them that they had outgrown for some time. So I wanted to talk about this because I know that some of you will be able to relate to this, and I can certainly relate to it in my own career as well, not just related to style, but how many of us can say that we're truly present in our day-to-day lives. Like, I was so running on autopilot in every single area of my life when I was working in corporate, because I was trying to fit in to the machine that is corporate life and be a mum and be a wife and do all the things that we have to do within our day-to-day lives. And that mental load is huge. And then when you throw visibility and style and everything into the mix as well, it just can all feel very overwhelming. And we do just default, and we do end up on autopilot. I had a similar experience. I think I've shared this before during lockdown, where I was defaulting because I was just going for what was easy and I wasn't feeling good in myself. I wasn't, my mental health was not in a particularly great place. So sometimes the cost can look different depending on where you are in your life and what else is going on for you. But there is always a cost in defaulting. And something that I say to my clients so often, it's like one of my phrases: if you're managing your outfit, you're not managing the room. And I say this all the time because if you're that woman who's adjusting her jacket, pulling her top down, wondering if the colour that she's wearing is too much, you're not present, you're managing your outfit. And the room notices, even if nothing is said in the moment. People feel that. People feel that in your energy. And I think energy is something that people pick up on a lot more now. They're a lot more aware of it than we ever have been. There's also a really subtle version of this, like the woman that looks polished, she looks pulled together and professional, and nobody would say that anything is wrong in how she's showing up. She walks into every room and she feels that low level friction within herself because she doesn't feel powerful. She doesn't feel bold. She doesn't feel magnetic. Her outfit is just fine and everything is fine. And yet something is really off and she's performing instead of being herself because she's got so accustomed to what professional looks like. And she's got this idea in her mind, perhaps from when she worked in a very male dominated environment, or in some way, like as she came through her career, she's built this idea of what professional looks like. And she's evolved so much since then that that no longer resonates or sits well with her. And it's just that underlying friction constantly that she's having to manage every day when she's out there performing a version of her that just doesn't resonate with her anymore. And this can show up in really strange places when it comes to the rest of your life and your work and your business. It can mean that you over prepare for presentations because you don't feel fully yourself in the room, that you second guess your authority because something about how you're showing up doesn't match the weight of what you're saying or what you're having to present in the room. And it can also mean that you're pulling back from visibility, which is probably the one that most people can relate to. So you're not booking in the photo shoot, you're not applying to speak on the podcast, you're not applying to be a TEDx speaker, whatever it is, those moments of visibility you're pulling back from because you know that you wouldn't be showing up as the fullest version of yourself. And it's not that anything needs fixing. Like, I absolutely cannot stand this narrative of that we're sold as women all the time that, you know, if you just do this, then it'll fix this. And we just constantly feel like we're never good enough and we're always striving to be, you know, like a better version of ourselves. And that's not at all what I want this conversation to be. It's actually the opposite. I actually want you to stop and think and reconnect with who you actually are, because style isn't supposed to be another thing to tick off the to-do list. It is purely supposed to be creativity, self-expression, joy, fun. Like, when's the last time that you felt joy and fun from what you were wearing? And what were you wearing? Like, I'd love you to message me, like DM me on Instagram or wherever you do social media, and tell me the last time that you actually felt that joy in your outfit and, you know, that natural like self-expression that just made you feel alive and made you feel magnetic and amazing. Because often when I ask this question to my clients, they actually really struggle to think of a time. And often it will be something that they prepared for, like, you know, a wedding or a special occasion or a special moment. And you deserve to feel like that every single day of your life. And yes, we are time poor. But if we just spend that small amount of time reconnecting to who we are, then you'll be amazed at how often you can have that feeling because you know exactly who you are, you know exactly what you love, and you can go out there and you can get it and you can create it. And you do get to that point where you couldn't care less what anyone else thinks about you. And it's so freeing and it's so therapeutic to go through that process. And that is the bit about this work that I just absolutely love, seeing that transformation happen. So I really don't want this conversation to be about fixing it. It's about evolution. It's about the fact that your confidence has evolved, your career's evolved, your ambitions evolved, but your clothes and your wardrobe haven't. And you're probably operating at like 80% of your presence because the first decision that you make in the morning in your wardrobe is a compromise, and it should never be a compromise. It should always be something that is centered in you. And yes, of course, we need to take into account the social situations that you're going into, you know, the room that you're walking into and the presentation that you're delivering and the location that you're in and all of those things. But we should always, always, always be starting with you. How do you want to feel? That is the first question that you should be answering in the morning. There'll be all sorts of other practicalities that come in, including the weather, which is a huge one for us in Britain. But something I've really come to understand through the identity work that I do is that we often have two sides of ourselves. And you might like to think of it as like the shadow side and the true side. And when I do identity work with my clients, it's so interesting what comes out. They get so excited, but they also feel quite emotional because they get reflected back to them. Often the shadow has been performing, and it's been the one at the forefront of their wardrobe. And if they were true to who they really are at their core, at their essence, their style would probably look a lot different and connect in with them a lot more. If they weren't trying to perform or dim or seek permission or defer, it's that energy of, is this too much, before you've even put something on, or reaching for something safe because standing out feels like an invitation for people to look at you too closely. And that side's not a weakness, it's not negative, it's protective. It's learned to keep you safe, keep you small, keep you in your box. And a lot of it can often be influenced by societal conditioning and things that we've picked up over a lifetime. But the other side of you is this like magnetic, direct, bold, but without trying. It's not a performance, it's you at your core. And this is going to look so different for each individual woman. It's a recent client saying to me that she picked up a red shirt and she didn't hesitate, and she knew that it was her exactly. And she felt incredible when she wore it to a really important meeting. And it gave her that added boost and that added confidence. But it didn't feel like she was performing. It just felt like her. And in practice, this can also look like a woman who coaches other women on confidence and visibility, but dresses in a way that makes her disappear. Or a woman who charges premium prices, speaks on stages, runs six-figure launches, and wears the same rotation of safe, muted, kind of watered down pieces because bold feels like a risk that she can't afford to take publicly. A woman who, when I show her the magnetic side in her chart, says, I know that about myself, but I've just never let that part of me lead the room. And the sad thing is that magnetic side is what makes you distinctive. It's what makes you you. And where your wardrobe has been falling into the kind of shadow side or the kind of softer side, the safer side, it's actually holding you back in so many different ways. And it's not being about loud or wearing sequins or making a statement, because it's not a costume. It's the version of you that's been waiting to be expressed in what you wear. And some women's magnetic energy is color. Others, it can be structure and elegance and precision. For some, it's texture and warmth and maybe unexpected combinations. If she's a trailblazer, it's going to be so unique to every woman, but the pattern is the same. It's overriding that bolder side of you because you want to conform and you want to fit in. But when you see both sides clearly, you stop making those wardrobe decisions in the morning from fear, and you start making them from who you are at your core. And that distinction changes absolutely everything. And it can really skyrocket your confidence and your conviction and how you're showing up in the room, which then obviously has such a positive knock-on effect for your career as well. One of the first things that changes when we've worked together is something I've mentioned before, which is speed. It's getting dressed becomes 5 minutes, not 20. It's not a negotiation. You've got the same amount of clothing possibly in your wardrobe, but your choices are clear. When you know who you are and your wardrobe reflects it, there's no negotiation. You open the wardrobe and the answer is obvious. And it's like, what can I wear today? Not what should I wear today? And that tiny little change in language is huge. And the second thing is energy. I've had women tell me after we've worked together, colleagues have said things like, something's different about you, or you seem more relaxed, or have you changed something about yourself? And often people don't actually clock that it's the clothes. They clock the energy, because a woman who's showing up in congruence with how she actually is carries herself very differently. She's not adjusting, she's not managing, she's just present. And that presence is really magnetic. And the third thing that often surprises women actually that I work with, the work that they do gets better, not because they've suddenly become more competent overnight, but because they stopped expending energy on performance, like performing a version of themselves. And that energy gets to go back into their business or their career, their clients, the creative thinking, the risk taking, and they start saying yes to things that they've been avoiding. So that might be the podcast interview, the photo shoot, the stage. the LinkedIn post with their face in it, the things they wanted, but kept finding reasons to delay. And they weren't avoiding those things because they weren't ready. They were avoiding them because the version that they were presenting still didn't feel strong enough to kind of withstand that level of visibility. And when your wardrobe matches who you are, visibility stops being a threat. It stops being scary. It's like a natural extension of who you are. You also just reduce your mental load massively because you stop agonizing over what to wear to that speaking gig, and you just walk in and you own it, and you're so focused on what you're there to say that your style becomes that second skin that you don't even think about. And when you're hiding on camera, then you start showing up with confidence. It makes such a huge difference to how people feel. Like, people really feel that shift in energy. And none of that comes from a shopping trip. All of it comes from knowing precisely who you are and dressing from that place. And so your wardrobe becomes a tool. Every morning you use it to set the tone for your day of how you want to feel, not to prove something, not to perform something, but to really express something that's already there within you. And that's the difference between a woman who gets dressed and a woman who shows up. So if you're listening to this and you're recognizing yourself, I want you to know that you don't need more inspiration. You don't need another Pinterest board or another color analysis or another shopping trip where you buy 3 things and you wear none of them and they sit there with the tags on in the wardrobe. You need to see yourself clearly, both sides, the one that's been keeping you safe and the one that's been waiting for you to step up and lead. And that is what Identity to Impact is. It's 7 sessions where we build a precise picture of who you are, holding up a mirror. And there's so many aha moments that happen because we use modalities like human design, astrology, character strengths, and then we translate that into how you show up through your signature style, through your bespoke color palette, your wardrobe, your presence. And we think about all of those interactions that you have in your day-to-day life, your lifestyle, your personal brand, and how you need to show up to reach your goals. And we build all of that from your identity, not from a trend report, not from somebody else's template. And that is so powerful because it's how you show up at your best. It's how you go out there in a way that feels comfortable to you and your communication style and your purpose and your presence and all of those things that are so important, that are so often skipped as part of the styling process. You've already built the career, you've got the clients, you've got the reputation. Your wardrobe is the last thing that is still performing a version of you that doesn't exist anymore. So if you'd like to find out more details about Identity to Impact or any of my other packages, I would love to chat to you on a free style strategy call. And I will link that in the show notes so that you can book in a half-hour chat with me over a cup of coffee. I would love to talk to you. And if you know a woman who's built something incredible and is still getting dressed like she needs permission to be seen, send her this episode. And one thing I want to leave you with, tomorrow morning when you open your wardrobe, notice which side of you is choosing the outfit. Are you choosing to be safe, to be professional, to fit in, to conform? Or are you choosing what brings you joy, what truly lights you up, and what is you at your core? I'll see you next week. Thank you for tuning in to A Styled Life. If today's episode resonated, the best way to support the show is to share it with another trailblazer or leave a quick review. And if you're ready to align your style with your next level of impact, head to the show notes to book your free style strategy call. Because when your style aligns with your purpose, the world takes notice.